Back in 2021, when Hasbro announced their G.I. Joe Sky Striker project through their HasLab crowdfunding platform, many were left wondering what the final product would look like in hand. As part of the project, we were promised more accessories and features than the original 1983 Sky Striker, as well as a co-pilot to sit in the rear seat of the cockpit, 3 Cobra figures added as part of the base offering midway through the crowdfunding campaign, and 2 stretch goals unlocked during the process of bringing this project to life. Over a year later, backers of this Kickstarter campaign would receive the massive box with the fully loaded, decked out, and feature-heavy Sky Striker at their doorsteps. So the real question is, did the retro-style Sky Striker live up to the hype and all that was promised? Let's talk about it right here and now. The massive box at my doorstep was over 2 feet tall when stood up on its side, and with quality control issues reported by other backers on social media who received the Sky Striker just days before me, I was eager to get this box open and explore the contents. I will make note here though that my goal is to evaluate this HasLab project objectively in terms of whether or not it came as advertised. Yes, I am aware of the optics of a corporation this size crowdfunding such an item, and trust me, it's not my preferred business model either. But with this being the first HasLab project that I participated in, the plan here is to at least see if the contents were worth the 230 American dollars that I paid. Interestingly, we got a shipping box within a shipping box, so it did take a few rounds of cutting through tape to get a look and feel for what I was buying. The Sky Striker box itself was done in its expected vintage style similar to its original release, with multiple decal sheets to allow both G.I. Joe and Cobra options, and a slew of accessories wrapped in layers of paper stored next to the pile of 7 figures that were part of the campaign's base tier and stretch goals. But before unboxing the Sky Striker, I took the extra lengthy and highly rewarding step of assembling the USS flag from my storage to give myself a surface for my new F-14 Tomcat plane to land on. And on the subject of F-14s, I did watch the original Top Gun movie a few weeks prior to receiving this Sky Striker, and I actually had already rented the Top Gun Maverick sequel to watch on the day that the Sky Striker landed. I suppose it was all about getting in the mood and looping Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone song in the back of my mind while enjoying my latest collection piece. I've already mentioned the box, which is stylized very similar to its original vintage counterpart. The Sky Striker body itself was tied down into the box with some of the accessories such as the twin jet engines in the corners of the box. Once you've emptied the contents of both the Sky Striker box and the surrounding shipping box, you're treated to a wealth of goodies to feast your eyes on. Between the blueprints, the fuel tank trailer and towing vehicle, a boatload of missiles, fuel tanks for the underside of the jet, blast effects, additional missile launching tabs, a ladder, and even a spare cockpit cover along with multiple tail fin and stabilizer options. Let's just say there was a lot to unpack, and that's not even considering the 7 carded figures that came with this fully loaded set. I do suggest using a hairdryer or a heat gun along the edges of the wings before you connect them to the Sky Striker, as they are a bit of a tight fit, and I have heard of unfortunate situations of Sky Striker wing tabs breaking when talking this experience over with some of my friends who also backed this project. The lever for releasing the landing gear is underneath the plane, though I will point out that the front landing gear doesn't recline tightly back into its closed position, so there were times that mine would dangle down from underneath the plane, unfortunately. So I will be among those to objectively state that this is not what I was expecting for a product in this price range. The lever on the top of the plane activates the main wings, allowing them to extend, and I did mention the various decal sheets if you want to give your aircraft a bit more color to stand out, again be it in either Cobra or G.I. Joe faction deco. I will be honest though that the factory applied decals look good enough, so I myself won't be applying any other stickers to this jet. Like the original vehicle, the Sky Striker comes with 2 seats for the cockpit and foldable parachutes. Note that in addition to other blast effects, the seats also have blast effects of their own to give it an ejection feature when the pilots need to bail out as a last resort. The large number of missiles is such that you can outfit the Sky Striker with a ton of armaments below it, all while leaving spare missiles on the new flight stand. You can also take the panels off of one side of the jet to clip the ladder on for your Joes to climb up into the cockpit. Adding the blast effects behind the missiles as well as on the chin guns at the front of the plane give this an even greater feeling, like it's in the air but also in attack mode at the same time. The fuel tank, trailer, and tow vehicle are somewhat similar to the ones that came with the USS Flag, albeit in a different design, and the towing vehicle even has a missile carrier on top that you can attach and detach. So when you place these two side by side, they do look a little bit different. Note that the ladder used to climb into the cockpit can be stored on the side of the tow vehicle if you prefer. The new vehicle also has more detailed sculpting, a device that appears to be a camera of sorts beneath the front of the jet, molded in chin guns for blast effects to be fired from, cloth parachutes with a material that's more sturdy than the original Sky Striker, and a cabin stick along with a more detailed dashboard for the pilot as compared to the much simpler looking dashboard of the original. As mentioned by the separate levers above and beneath the plane, this differs from the original as it allows the landing gear and wings to be operated independently of one another, and of course I've already mentioned the additional optional vertical fins in two different colors and extra missiles and the plethora of blast effects. And when you place the missiles and blast effects underneath, there really is a lot of plastic that was used for this, and it's great if you are one of those who likes having tons and tons of options for displaying your toys. And as we look at the fully decked out plane on its flight stand, I can honestly say that it is quite the sight to see it like this, especially with the flag as its takeoff and landing surface. While playing with as well as reviewing this new HasLab offering, I will admit that the positives outweigh the negatives in terms of this part of the purchase. Now, what about the rest of the purchase? So yes, we got 7 carded figures, the majority of which I was quite excited for, as we either got new characters or new releases of already existing characters to expand the lore of the franchise. And for followers of this channel, you probably remember that expanding the range of character selections is something that I always like seeing, as it adds to the depth of the G.I. Joe franchise that I consider to be a cornerstone of my collection. Here's a quick look at the cards of these newly offered figures as compared to that of vintage originals for those who are curious. I was fortunate enough in that my card backs were not damaged, but other collectors have said that this is not the case for them, so it's definitely something to be aware of. Now, admittedly, I was least excited about receiving the character of Ace, given that he was already released in the vintage line and is still findable on secondary markets today. However, I understand why they needed to add him, as he is the main pilot for the Sky Striker after all. This will be a figure that I leave carded, since the original 1983 Ace didn't come carded with the vintage Sky Striker, so that'll be what makes this feels a little bit more unique in my collection. Honestly though, when you compare it to the original 1983 release, I kind of feel like the paint, face details don't seem to stand out as much, and it makes this new Ace figure seem just a tiny bit on the bland side. Now, while I admitted that I wasn't overjoyed about getting another figure of Ace, I was thrilled, however, to get the Radar Intercept Officer, or Rio, who was supposed to be Ace's co-pilot that we never got a figure of back in the day. That being Wayne Ruthel, codename Failsafe. Of course, if you watched and loved Top Gun, having a Rio to assist the primary pilot is something we can all think back and have fond memories of. Failsafe comes with his own file card, which you can pause and read if you'd like. And while I'm thrilled to finally get a character like this, I did notice that the color finish was a bit on the dull side, and they don't have that added sheen that you see on the vintage figures. The plastic also seems to be just a tiny bit cheaper and feels a bit less sturdy than that of the original 1980s and 1990s era of G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero. I mentioned that late in the Sky Striker campaign, we did get 3 carded Cobra figures added, which seemed to boost the backer numbers to get this project funded. I was most excited for the Ramp Rat, given its function as a ground crew for either a Cobra decoed Sky Striker, or perhaps even for the Cobra Rattler or other flight-based vehicles. You can pause and read his file card as well. I do like his look as something to contrast with the other 1983 original swivel arm Cobras, despite seemingly being in a bit of a lower grade plastic, and in any case he's a welcome addition to the bad guy forces on my shelves. I will be keeping the Cobra Trooper carded, given that I have loose examples of the original already, and I noticed a lighter shade of blue, which I suppose is to make him more Sunbow animation cartoon accurate. But again, looking at the figure on the bubble, the face paint details don't seem to stand out as much compared to the original. Much of the same can be said for the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander that came with this set when I compare him to the original non-Mickey version from 1983. Colors are a bit more faded by comparison, just like the other figures, where I prefer the more shiny finish that I mentioned earlier. There's even been reports of some people getting their Cobra Commander Mickey Mouse figure with 2 right arms, which I'd personally be very disappointed if that had happened to me, and in fact I feel for my fellow collectors for having to experience something like this. The main positive I will add though is that an original Mickey Mouse style Cobra Commander fetches very high secondary market prices, so it's nice to have this one to stand in for that part of the collection. The Flight Suit Scarlet was the first official bonus unlock tier that we got as part of this campaign. Here's a look at her side by side with the original, and I like what it stands for as being a version of the character that we never got in the past. It's also nice that we got footholes for pegs with this figure, a feature we never got with the original version. Oddly though, her crossbow doesn't come with a handle, which seems to have been done without explanation, and it makes it seem a little bit impractical, especially since the original release did come with a crossbow handle. And of course, we got the second unlocked here as well, namely Night Force Ripcord. Looking at him next to the original 1984 version 1 release, again I just find the paint a bit stronger on the original. Not to mention, the parachute pack also has a more professional finish to it on the original rather than the dull finish of the new Night Force one. Oddly enough though, the Night Force helmet is made of a softer plastic and is a bit of a loose fit on his head. In the end though, he does look good displayed with the other Night Force figures, and makes a welcome addition to the original 1988 through 1989 cast of Night Force characters. Now despite the different finish on the plastic, thematically he fits in seamlessly with this cast and is for sure one of the figures that I anticipated the most when I backed this set. We unfortunately didn't get enough backers to have the final tier unlocked, which would have been the G.I. Joe Flag ground crew that would have served as the equivalent and counterpart to Ramp Rats. And this is a pair that the G.I. Joe community has jokingly referred to as ketchup and mustard due to their appearances. Now hopefully we are able to get these figures someday. In general, there's a ton to like, but at the same time there are a few things not to like about this entire Sky Striker offering. When the campaign first ended, I was thrilled to know that I'd be getting a jet with a ton of features, along with 7 figures to go with it. And at first glance, it made it seem like the $230 price tag was worth the offering, and one can still definitely believe that it's worth that much given the sheer volume of what comes in the box. That said, this offering is by no means perfect. Now, am I happy to have it? Yes, and in fact, it's a resounding yes, because my excitement came from the new features and the range of new figure offerings to recreate that feel of seeing characters and new versions of characters for the first time, which is an experience that I surely cherished as a kid. Now, between the landing gear issue, the tightness of assembling the wings, the less than stellar paint and plastic finish of the figures, and a lack of a handle on Scarlet's crossbow, does leave something to be desired, and is perhaps something that Hasbro can work on in future projects. So hopefully that gets done, and it's not just wishful thinking on my part to see some improvements for future work. Having said all that, I would like to hear from the rest of you in the comments section below. Is this a set that you backed? And after watching this video, is it worth the price in your minds? Let me know. Special thanks to the Patreon supporters and channel members whose names can be found in the description section of this video. Visit patreon.com/toyconnections where you can unlock exclusive content and other benefits, or click the join button next to my channel name to receive special badges and emojis for your use in the comment section of any Toy Connections video or live stream. And if you enjoyed this video, don't go anywhere just yet. You can have a closer look at the USS Flag by clicking on this video review right over here. Or to learn more about the history of G.I. Joe as a toy franchise, you can click on this video right over here. And with that, yo Joe, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks again, and take care.